June breathed heavily as he crawled around the track in morning gym class. A group of classmates jogged easily ahead, laughing at him. "Move it, Pudding!" one boy hollered from the sidelines. The coach blew a whistle sharply, out of impatience. June hurried down the hall, his legs hurt, but he ignored the pain. Entering classroom, as he sat at the back, the desk creaked under him. Behind him, a hushed giggle sounded. He felt like even the furniture was mocking him. He tensed. "Psst," a voice whispered, followed by the light poke of a pen in his back. June slowly turned. Amber, the most popular first-year girl, sat behind him with a sweet smile. She leaned forward and held out a folded note. "From Claire," she whispered. June's eyes flickered past Amber to the desk where Claire, his childhood friend, sat carefully avoiding his gaze. His heart lifted for a moment. Claire was reaching out to him. It had been so long since they'd really talked. June accepted the note with hope and confusion. Amber winked and gave an encouraging nod as if to say, "Go on, read it." Scrawled in neat black ink, Claire's handwriting, were the words, "Meet me behind the science building at lunch." Smiley face. His pulse quickened. She wanted to meet him? Maybe she remembered their old friendship and felt sorry for how things had been. He glanced back at Claire. This time she met his eyes, then looked away, biting her lip. Perhaps she was nervous too. For the next hour, he could barely concentrate on the lesson. Anticipation fluttered in his stomach. He told himself not to get too excited, but he couldn't help it. He had been so lonely. The idea of Claire wanting to talk made hope bloom painfully in his chest. When the lunch bell finally rang, June hurried out. Calm down, he thought. Maybe she just wants to apologize, or be friends again. June spotted Claire standing in the shade, looking down at her phone. She was alone. June mustered a timid smile. "Hey," June greeted softly. You wanted to talk?" Claire shifted uneasily, biting her lip as if searching for the right words. June's mind raced. "Claire, it's okay. You can tell me anything," he said gently. Claire raised her head sharply, her expression hardening into something colder, crueler. "Tell you anything?" she echoed. "Did you seriously think I'd call you here to confess or something?" June froze, the warmth of his hope turning bitterly cold in an instant. "You thought wrong. I called you here because I want you to stop. Stop staring at me. Stop following me around like some pathetic puppy. We aren't friends anymore, June. Honestly, we never really were. I just felt sorry for you." The cruelty of her words hit June like a punch to the gut, leaving him breathless and dizzy. "Claire, please," he whispered. Her eyes flashed angrily. "No, June. You need to hear this clearly. Amber and the others have noticed too, and it's humiliating. You're embarrassing me. Just leave me alone. Forever." Suddenly, Amber's voice sliced through the quiet, dripping with fake sympathy. Poor June. She was strolling toward them, flanked by Mark, Ryu, and their usual crowd. Claire shrank back, hesitant, and without another word hurried away. June's face burned with humiliation as the pieces fell into place. It was all a setup. Claire, Amber, everyone. They'd planned this, and he'd walked right into it. Amber gave him a pitying pout. "Rejection hurts, doesn't it?" She glanced mockingly in the direction Claire had fled, then smiled cruelly. "Don't worry, we'll still be your friends." Mark leaned in, his expression darkening. "Yeah, and since we're friends, you won't mind lending me some cash, right?" Their laughter circled June, sharp and merciless. At that moment, a faint voice sounded from nearby. "Leave him alone." Amber and the others turned toward the source. Close by stood Emily. She was a slight, quiet girl from June's grade. Emily wrung her hands together. "Just stop," she said. "This isn't right." The group went silent briefly. Then Amber responded rudely, warning Emily not to interfere, claiming they were only joking. Emily's face paled, but she firmly stood her ground, asking how it was funny when they were clearly hurting him. Ryu took a menacing step towards Emily. "Scram, Mousy, unless you want us to have fun with you next." The thought of Emily getting dragged into this because of him was too much. He found his voice at last. "Emily, don't," he began, intending to tell her to run, but Mark shoved him hard in the chest, sending him sprawling backward against the wall. Pain jolted through June's back. Emily cried, starting forward on instinct. Mark turned toward her angrily, but just then the lunch bell rang in the distance. One of Amber's friends called out, "Teacher's coming." Amber clicked her tongue, clearly annoyed. She fixed June with one last icy look. "See you around, June boy." Mark gave June a parting shove with his foot, before jogging off with a smirk. In moments, they were gone. Tears of shame and heartbreak spilled freely now that no one but Emily was there to see. Emily approached cautiously, kneeling a few feet from him. Her dark eyes were full of sympathy and sadness. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a clean tissue, holding it out to him with a shaky hand. June hesitated, then accepted. He wiped his face, though the tears kept coming. She whispered an apology to June, admitting she'd known but hadn't warned him, her voice breaking with regret. June glanced at her through watery eyes. Emily's own eyes glistened, on the verge of tears for him. He found himself shaking his head. "It's not your fault. I should have known better." He let out a bitter, broken laugh. It was stupid to think His voice cracked, and a fresh wave of tears came. Emily hesitated only a moment before gently laying a hand on his shoulder. "It wasn't stupid to hope," she murmured. "They were cruel, and you didn't deserve that." He hadn't heard such kindness directed at him in a long while. Trying to steady himself, June pushed upward, but his legs trembled. Emily noticed immediately. She gently grasped his arm, steadying him until he found his balance. Her touch was careful, reassuring. He gave her a trembling, grateful smile. "Thank you for standing up for me." Emily lowered her gaze as she whispered that she couldn't simply stand by and watch. They walked together out from behind the building. As they parted ways in the hallway, Emily gave him a tiny, encouraging smile. The sting of betrayal from Claire and Amber's cruelty was still raw, but Emily's kindness felt soothing. When the final bell rang, June quickly left campus, arriving home just as the sun began to set. He quietly stepped inside. He peeked into the kitchen. A note was stuck on the fridge with a magnet. "Working late, dinner in the microwave. Mom." Of course his mom wasn't home. She was rarely home before bedtime these days, buried in work at the office. As for Dad, he walked out on them when June was little. June made his way upstairs and noticed his sister Sayu's bedroom door was ajar. He saw her inside, sitting at her vanity and brushing her hair. "What do you want?" she asked, not bothering to hide the annoyance in her tone. For a moment, he thought of telling Sayu, but remembered she hated hearing his problems. "Nothing," he muttered finally. Sayu glanced at him over. "Were you crying or something?" She folded her arms, exhaling in exasperation as an inconvenience to her. "It was nothing," he lied flatly, stepping back. Sayu rolled her eyes. "Whatever, just try not to embarrass me, okay? I've got enough to deal with." With that, she turned back to her mirror, effectively dismissing him. Without another word, June retreated to his room and shut the door. It was the only space where he felt remotely safe. His gaze drifted to his desk, where his sketchbook lay open. He'd been doodling a superhero last night, a muscle-bound warrior who could shrug off bullets and lift cars. He fantasized so often about having strength like that, about being someone powerful. But the reality was, he was just him. An overweight, lonely 17-year-old who couldn't even walk down without breathing. He'd tried to change, to exercise and build himself up, but his body always betrayed him. Even a single half push-up left him shaking and gasping for 15 minutes. His eyes fell on his phone lying on the bed beside him. He snatched it up, maybe to check the few social media apps he had. Not that he expected any messages. As the screen lit up, something unfamiliar caught his eye. An icon he didn't recognize was sitting in the middle of his home screen. It was named Gatewalker. He certainly hadn't downloaded any new apps recently. He quickly deleted it, but seconds later, it reappeared. A chill crept down June's spine. He deleted it again. Once, twice, 3 times. Each time, it returned faster. Now curious, June tapped the icon. The screen went black for a second. Then a line of text popped up in simple white font on the dark background. "Are you ready to unlock your true potential?" June blinked. Was this some kind of weird ad? Under the question, 2 buttons faded into view side by side. Yes and no. He looked for a way to close the app. It didn't have any typical interface. He tried to shut the phone off entirely. It refused to power down. The device vibrates slightly in his hand, and the words on the screen blinked once almost urgently. "Want to become the perfect version of yourself?" It was as if the phone wouldn't let him do anything else until he responded. He hesitated only a moment longer, then tapped yes. A blinding white light poured out of the phone so bright that June yelped and dropped it onto the bed. Then just as quickly, the brightness dulled. When his eyes adjusted, his heart nearly stopped. He was no longer in his bedroom. An endless expanse of pure white spread in every direction. No ceiling or sky, just an infinite space of light and foggy white. "Hello?" he called out. In front of him, text flickered into existence in midair. It read, "Welcome, June. Challenge 1. Walk 2 kilometers in 2 times gravity." Before he could fully absorb those words, June yelped as an invisible force suddenly pressed down on him. 2 times gravity, the challenge text had said. This is impossible, he thought wildly. How was he supposed to walk under this pressure? Hours seemed to pass as he lay there, unable to even lift his head. Slowly, desperately, June clawed at the ground, dragging his trembling body forward an inch at a time. 1 foot. He forced it forward and set it down. 1 step. Pain already prickled in his thighs from the effort. He took another step, and another. Each footfall was heavy. After just 10 steps, his legs buckled suddenly, and he collapsed face first onto the cold, hard ground. Tears blurred his vision, but he remembered all the taunts, all the laughter. If this bizarre trial was truly the key to becoming stronger, this was his only chance. So June pressed on. The white expanse gave no sense of progress, only a small display, showing a distance count, 0.2 kilometers. He had no idea how long he'd been trapped here, hours or maybe days. Oddly enough, he didn't feel hungry or thirsty at all, yet exhaustion burned through him. By 0.5 kilometers, June's lungs were on fire. The moment he stopped moving, a voice chimed in the air, pausing challenge. June's head jerked up. "Who's there?" he called, but there was no reply. Perhaps it was an automated voice of the app. Maybe he could rest as needed, but he feared some penalty if he took too long. After a few minutes, he forced himself back to his feet. "Resume," he muttered. The display responded. 1 step at a time. He found a slow rhythm, step, breathe, step, breathe, that pushed him forward a few meters at a time. He pictured the school track, remembering the mocking faces. If he could survive that ridicule daily, he could survive this lonely trial now. At 1.0 kilometer, June let out a cry of relief and collapsed. He shut his eyes, just trying to breathe. Maybe the app had chosen the wrong person. He was weak. He was the kid who always came in last, gave up easily, and never fought back. No, a firmer voice inside him protested. That kid was who he used to be. He wanted change, didn't he? He would do it inch by inch if he had to. His vision tunneled. All he knew was putting one foot in front of the other. At 1.8 kilometers, June was sobbing under his breath. Just a little further, he shuffled, dragging one foot then the other. Finally, with one last step, the display changed. 2 kilometers. A triumphant chime sounded. Challenge 1 complete. Congratulations, the calm voice announced. There was no prize offered, no explanation, but he felt an immense swell of pride and relief wash over him. A heartbeat later, the light consumed him once more. June jolted awake in his bedroom, briefly wondering if it had all been a dream. His phone lay beside him where it had fallen. It felt like he'd spent days in that strange place, but a quick glance at his alarm clock made his heart skip. Time hadn't moved at. A notification pinged on his phone, making him jump. On the screen was the same app. It glowed once, and then a small text bubble appeared. Status, Challenge 1 complete. June tapped the screen, but nothing happened. He pressed the back button, and this time it worked. The app closed instantly. He stood up on shaky legs, and to his surprise, they held firm. In fact, he felt steady. He felt good. He walked a few steps around his room. His body obeyed easily. The usual heaviness he always felt was greatly reduced. He dared to do a little hop. Not only did both feet leave the ground, but when he landed, it was almost gentle. Crossing to the mirror on his closet door, he still looked like him. Chubby face, stocky build, but something was slightly different. His posture, perhaps. A soft knock at his door jolted him from his thoughts. He quickly opened the door a crack, revealing Sayu in the dim hallway. She looked annoyed, her brows drawn. "What was that noise?" she asked. "Did you fall or something?" June shook his head, insisting he was fine. He just tripped. Nothing serious. When she found nothing, she sighed. "All right, well, keep it down. I'm trying to study." She started to turn away, then paused. Her voice came softer. "And about earlier." June felt his stomach clench. Was she about to apologize? Sayu opened her mouth, then closed it. In the end, she just shook her head. "Never mind. Good night." She walked off to her room without another word. Part of him yearned for her to have finished that sentence, to say she was sorry for being so harsh, but that was wishful thinking. June returned to the mirror. He looked basically the same to an outsider. The big changes were on the inside. He could feel it. If Challenge 1 had done this for him, then he wanted to try more as soon as possible. Monday arrived as he walked into school. His legs moved smoothly. It felt so good to move without struggle. He braced himself for the usual snickers or shoves, but nothing happened until he reached his locker. "Well, if it isn't June boy," a sneering voice greeted. He recognized it immediately. Mark, his bruiser friend Ryu at his side. June swallowed, trying to keep calm. Mark smiled coldly, eyes empty. Stepping closer, he mentioned June's luck on Friday when the bell rang. June quickly assured them he hadn't told anyone. Not teachers, no one. Ryu snorted. "Course you didn't. Rat us out and it'll be worse for you." June felt a flicker of irritation. "I get it," he mumbled. Mark raised an eyebrow, noticing June's more assertive tone. "You grow a spine over the weekend?" He shoved June's shoulder lightly. "Don't forget your place." Mark chuckled and moved off with Ryu. At lunch, June found a quiet spot at the edge of the courtyard. Usually he ate alone, but today someone approached. Emily hovered a few steps away, clutching her lunch bag, and he smiled warmly in return, shifting on the bench to offer her space to sit. For a minute, they ate in comfortable silence. Emily normally kept to herself too, he realized. Perhaps she had no close friends either. "How are you?" she asked. "After everything, I mean." He replied that he was okay, at least better than he had been on Friday. Emily bit her lip. If they try something, maybe you should go to a teacher." Her tone lacked conviction. They both knew teachers hardly ever stopped the bullying, and reporting could make things worse. June insisted he'd handle it. The bell rang, ending lunch. As they stood, June mustered his courage and said, "Emily, about Friday. Thank you for what you did. I'll never forget it." She looked up at him, brown eyes wide, and gave a shy smile. "That's what friends are for, right?" The word friends warmed him more than the sunshine. He nodded. At 3 p.m. when school let out, June tried to slip out quickly. He almost thought he'd avoided them, until a strong hand clamped down on the back of his collar. "Going somewhere?" growled Ryu, yanking June backwards. June stumbled, and Mark was there too. Most students had left this area. They dragged June behind the large dumpster by the cafeteria, an isolated spot out of view. Ryu cracked his knuckles. "Your little girlfriend brought a teacher around. We almost got busted." June's mouth went dry. "I swear I didn't ask her to." He tried, but Mark's fist lashed out, slamming into the wall just inches from June's head. "We're gonna teach you a lesson, fatty. You and that nosy girl both if she shows her face." June's eyes widened. He fiercely told them to leave Emily out of it. She has nothing to do with. A heavy punch exploded against his stomach, cutting his plea short. June doubled over, wheezing. Ryu stepped in and grabbed June by the hair, yanking him upright painfully. Ryu smirked and delivered a hard slap across his cheek. He then threw him to the ground. June hit the concrete with a thud. Not again. It's happening again, his mind screamed. He felt Mark's foot connect with his thigh, followed by another kick to his side. He grunted, pain flaring along his ribcage. Think you're tough now, huh? You ain't Suddenly a voice rang out. Hey, stop. It was Emily. June's stomach clenched in terror for her. She must have followed despite his warning. Mark glanced over, annoyed. You again? Emily yelled at them to get away from him, her voice shaking. Thought we warned you, little mouse. You want to be a hero? He advanced and Emily instinctively backed up, realizing too late the danger she'd put herself in. Rage and panic ignited in June at the sight of Ryu stalking Emily. He couldn't let them hurt her. Ignoring his pain, June forced himself halfway up. Leave her alone, he shouted. Mark's hand clamped on the back of June's neck, driving him back down to the ground. Emily, desperate, yelled, I'm calling the police. She fumbled with her phone. Ryu lunged and snatched the phone from her before she could react. He tossed it to the side, where it clattered under a dumpster. Emily let out a little cry of dismay. Ryu grabbed her wrist tightly. Maybe we should give you a matching bruise, huh? Since you like sticking your nose in. Tears pooled in Emily's eyes, though she bit her lip to keep from begging. June struggled, a wild fury overtaking his fear. They were going to hurt her, because of him. He elbowed Mark hard in the gut. The surprised move made the Mark grunt. Fueled by adrenaline, June roared at Ryu to get off Emily, startling Ryu enough to let her go. You little? Ryu swore, regaining balance. He swung at June with a clenched fist. It connected solidly with June's jaw. White pain burst in June's head. Somehow he clung to consciousness. Emily rushed to June's side, trying to help him up. Mark had recovered and was red-faced with anger now. Enough playing, he snarled to Ryu. Hold him. Ryu grabbed June from behind, pinning June's arms back in a lock. Mark loomed in front of him, breathing hard with fury. Emily inched forward. Please don't, she begged, tears on her lashes. You'll really hurt him. That's the idea, Mark shot back. He drew back his fist, aiming for June's face this time. Suddenly, time seemed to slow. As if in answer to his resolve, his pocket grew warm. June's phone began to vibrate intensely. Both Mark and Ryu noticed the faint glow emanating from June's jeans. June realized instantly what it was. In one desperate motion, he jerked his leg and managed to shake the phone loose from his pocket. On the screen, a prompt flashed. Challenge number 2. Are you ready? It needed his acceptance. Yes, June shouted at the top of his lungs. The world erupted in white light around June, and in the blink of an eye, June was gone. The instant June reappeared, he landed hard on a cold metallic floor in a crouch. He appeared to be in a large industrial space. June rose unsteadily to his feet. The aches from the bully's beating were gone. In fact, he felt fresh, as if the app had reset his physical condition upon entry. Ahead of him, a familiar floating text materialized in the air. Challenge 2. Defeat the Iron Golem. As soon as June finished reading, the letters faded. A scraping noise came from his left. June spun toward the dark aisle. 2 red lights flashed, like eyes. June's breath caught. With a heavy metallic thud, a shape stepped into view. It was a humanoid robot, built like an armored soldier, his heart pounding as the hulking humanoid robot steps out of the shadows. In an instant, it lunges. June's attempt to dodge is too slow. A metal hand punches him with crushing force. There's a sickening crunch of bone, then nothing. Darkness. Moments later, June gasps back to life at the warehouse's entrance. The scene resets as if the nightmare has started anew. The same flickering lights, the same silent rows of crates. Across the room, the robot reactivates too. Thus began a gruesome cycle. The robot hunts him relentlessly through the maze of the warehouse, and whenever it catches him, it kills him without mercy. And each time, the world snaps back to the start. Days, or perhaps weeks, pass in this hellish time loop. In this artificial world, he no longer needs food or water. He becomes like a ghost in his own nightmare, skittering from hiding spot to hiding spot. Eventually, the psychological toll of running and dying so many times breaks something inside June. He has been killed in every conceivable way, and yet, an even worse feeling gnaws at him now. Shame. Shame at his cowardice and the endless retreats. The robot's iron footsteps clang nearby, searching. June feels a spark of anger ignite within his chest. When the cycle resets after yet another violent end, June doesn't run. This time he steps forward into the open, confronting the oncoming robot. The next confrontations are brutal but illuminating. Every time the robot overpowers and kills June, he observes something new. He learns the range of the robot's reach and the timing of its crushing blows. Those lessons are etched into him with every fatal impact. After each resurrection, June comes back a bit less fragile than before. The first few times he tries to block the robot's attacks, his forearms snap like twigs. But as he keeps resurrecting, his bones grow harder. Soon he can raise his arms to defend himself and suffer only deep bruises instead of broken limbs. His skin toughens, even his senses sharpen. What started as a one-sided slaughter is evolving into a grim training regimen. One fateful iteration, June puts all the pieces together. As the robot hurtles toward him, he remains calm, adjusting his footing the way he's learned. When the iron giant throws its punch, June slips aside with inches to spare. He drives his elbow into the robot's arm joint. Metal crumples slightly under the blow. The robot, momentarily off balance, swings around to attack again. But June is already moving with a speed born of countless deaths. He ducks under the next swing and leaps onto the robot's back. With a guttural shout, he clasps his hands around the machine's head. The robot bucks and thrashes, smashing June against a concrete pillar, but he holds on with an iron grip. There's a shriek of tearing metal as the robot's neck cracks. In its final twitch, the robot fell to the floor, its head broken off by June's anger. Panting in the sudden silence, he gets a notification that the trainer had been defeated. He staggers back, eyes fixed on the broken robot that had killed him so many times. The fight is over. But something was strange. Even after minutes, nothing happened. He was still standing there, alone. A horrifying realization dawned upon him. The system had clearly said he needed to defeat the Iron Golem, yet the notification had announced the trainer's defeat. No sooner has June caught his breath than a new tremor shakes the ground. At the far end of the warehouse, an enormous sliding door begins to open. Beyond it lies darkness, until two colossal amber lights flicker to life. From the black void steps the giant Iron Golem. If the previous robot was a bulldozer, this one is an entire building on legs. Its arms are as thick as tree trunks and end in hands that could crush a car. But June has not come this far to give up. He plants his feet and raises his hardened fists. The ultimate challenge has arrived, and he will meet it head on. The Iron Golem strikes first, a giant arm swinging down with the force. June hurls himself to the side, barely avoiding being pulverized. What follows is a battle unlike any June has fought before. He darts through the debris, searching frantically for any weakness. He delivers quick counterattacks whenever he can. His blows leave only the faintest dents in the Iron Golem's armor. Minute by minute, the Iron Golem wears June down. When the Golem manages to grab June and squeeze, he feels his ribs bending on the verge of snapping, yet he pries himself free with a raw scream. He blacks out for a split second, only to regain consciousness with a furious will to continue. It's as if his body simply refuses to die now. June steadies himself for one last effort. Both he and the Iron Golem are moving slower than when the battle began. The Golem has taken significant damage. June himself is battered and bruised, but he can still stand. Summoning a deep determination, he forces his broken body into a sprint directly toward the towering foe. The Iron Golem massive arm whooshes just inches above his head, missing him by a hair. June reaches the Golem's legs. With a guttural roar, he drives his shoulder like a battering ram into the monster's already damaged knee. The impact finally achieves what hundreds of punches could not. The Iron Golem's leg buckles with a deafening crunch. The giant loses its balance. It tries to stabilize, but June is already on his feet and throws his full weight into the Golem's other leg. There is a thunderous boom as the Iron Golem topples. June leaps onto the Iron Golem's broad chest. At last, he has a clear shot at something vital. Between the Golem's torso, a faint blue glow spills out, which looks like its power core. With a fierce cry, June raises a fist and drives it down like a sledgehammer. The armor dents from the blow. He draws back and strikes again, screaming through the pain. June unleashed a relentless barrage of punches onto the same spot. With his fingers broken, June still reaches into the sparking hole and seizes whatever his fist can grip. A bundle of hot cables, part of the core itself, with every remaining ounce of strength. The Iron Golem shudders beneath him. His glowing eyes flicker once and then die out. Its remaining arm falls limp to the ground with a heavy thud. Challenge number 2. Cleared. The warehouse scene around him began to dissolve into white light. "Congratulations, Challenger," the calm voice spoke as the world faded. When June opened his eyes again, he was back behind the school. He returned in the very same heartbeat he had left, exactly where the bullies had cornered him. Time in the real world had not advanced at all. The scene was frozen. Mark's fist was still hurtling toward June's face, but June was no longer the same boy who had been held helpless moments ago. He didn't even bother dodging. The punch landed squarely on June, yet he felt nothing. Instead, it was Mark who recoiled sharply, jerking back his hand in pain. June noticed Ryu was still holding him in a tight grip. He grabbed Ryu's hand, lifting it as though it weighed nothing. With a slight squeeze, he felt Ryu's wrist crack, making Ryu scream in pain and fall to his knees. "What the?" Mark shouted, surprised as June slipped from Ryu's hold. June turned to face Mark calmly. After everything he'd gone through, dealing with these two bullies felt like playing with a child. Mark threw a punch toward June's face in anger. June simply grabbed Mark's fist mid-punch. Mark cried out as his hand bent awkwardly, bones cracking under June's grip. Mark desperately tried to pull his hand away, but June squeezed harder until Mark screamed from the pain. "Hurts, doesn't it?" June said coldly, pushing Mark back with one hand. Mark slammed into the brick wall and fell to the ground, groaning. Ryu, ignoring his broken wrist for a moment, rushed at June again. June stepped aside smoothly, grabbed Ryu by the throat, and lifted him off the ground easily. Ryu struggled, eyes wide with fear. "I warned you," June said quietly, tightening his grip just enough to scare Ryu before tossing him aside. Mark struggled back to his feet, angry and afraid. He took out a pocket knife, flicking it open with shaky hands. "You'll pay for this," Mark yelled, charging at June. At the last moment, he caught Mark's wrist and twisted sharply. June then hit Mark's chest with his palm. Mark lay gasping on the ground, tears filling his eyes. Ryu stared at June, terrified and unable to move. June picked up the knife, snapped it shut, and glared down at the two bullies. "Listen carefully. If either of you ever come near me or Emily again, I'll break more than just bones." Both boys nodded quickly, fear clear in their eyes. Behind June, Emily finally stirred, her voice shaky but filled with concern. "It's okay," he assured her softly, turning away from the defeated bullies. Mark and Ryu used that moment to scramble to their feet. Emily's face was streaked with tears, but there was a radiant relief in her eyes. I can't believe. Are you sure you're okay?" June managed a gentle smile. "I'm okay, Emily. Really?" He realized he was standing more upright than ever, shoulders squared. Emily had to tilt her head up slightly to meet his eyes. Emily looked like she wanted to ask a dozen things about what she'd just witnessed, but she bit her lip, clearly unsure if she should pry. The following days at school passed in a surreal blur for June. Rumors of what happened behind the cafeteria dumpster spread quickly, how Mark and Ryu had inexplicably gotten beaten up. Some said by a mystery upperclassman. Others whispered it was the fat kid who freakishly overpowered them. Few believed the latter, and June himself kept a low profile. On Wednesday evening, June deliberately finished all his pending tasks. He informed his mom and Sayu that he'd be away for a week and asked them not to call, fully aware of what he was about to do. When he opened the mysterious app, it glowed softly. Challenge number 3, unlocked. Without further hesitation, June hit accept on challenge 3, engulfing his room in brilliant white. When he opened his eyes, he stood in yet another realm. This place was unlike the blank void or the warehouse. He found himself in a vast, open landscape under a burning sun. Notification pops up. Challenge 3, complete 100,000 push-ups and a 10,000-kilometer run in 3 times gravity and extreme heat conditions. His previous self would have been terrified and backed away immediately, but not now. He recalled how impossible the first 2 challenges had seemed, yet he overcame them. He felt no fear, only determination. Suddenly, an oppressive weight bore down on him immediately. The 3 times gravity was active. June staggered but managed to stay upright. June took a deep breath, instantly regretting it as the hot air singed his throat. "All right," he mumbled to himself. 1 push-up, 2, 3. At 10, his arms shook. At 15, they burned. He forced himself to 20 before he collapsed. "Only 99,800 to go," he panted with a humorless laugh. After resting briefly, he tried again. His arms were sturdy, but pushing his heavy body against double gravity quickly became a new form of torture. He managed 30 push-ups before the pain overwhelmed him again. By day 15th, hallucinations flickered. Amber's sneer echoed, "Quit, pudding." On day 60, he collapsed mid-run, vision swimming. A mirage of Emily materialized, offering a canteen. "You're stronger than you think," she whispered. He drank the illusion dry and ran harder. June knew this would take a long time. Over time, he adapted, muscles grew stronger, and he accumulated thousands of push-ups and sit-ups and hundreds of kilometers. His body transformed rapidly, shedding fat, gaining lean muscle. Midway sometimes, June hit physical limits, forcing himself to rest for a week to recover fully. Once refreshed, he attacked his exercises with renewed determination. Finally, after what it felt like years, only running remained, hundreds of kilometers still ahead. With determination, he pushed through. As he approached the finish line, he gathered all his strength for a final sprint. Crossing the unseen finish, a triumphant bell echoed loudly. June stopped, panting and victorious, the challenge finally overcome. A notification pops up. Challenge number 3 cleared. He had done it. All tasks complete. He dropped to his knees on the hot ground. When the light intensified to an all-consuming flash, he closed his eyes and let it wash over him. He found himself back in his bedroom. He was very sweaty, so he removed his t-shirt. Slowly, June rose to his feet. He caught sight of himself in the full-length mirror. The reflection that met him stole his breath. Standing at his full height, his body was lean and muscular in a way that could only be described as athletic, his jawline sharp and masculine. Even his eyes seemed changed. A sudden knock on his door snapped him out of his thoughts. "June?" It was Sayu. "Are you back?" June felt a swirl of emotions about seeing his sister. She hadn't properly looked at him in a long time. Well, she was about to. June replied that he was up, noticing his voice sounded deeper and steadier. The door opened. Sayu didn't wait for permission. She rarely did. She stepped in, phone in one hand, her eyes finally lifting to see him. Time seemed to freeze. Sayu's jaw literally dropped. She blinked rapidly, as if convinced she was seeing wrong. "Be brother?" He offered a faint, almost shy smile. "Morning, Sayu." She just stared. Her eyes traveled from his face, down to the hint of a toned stomach, then back to his face again. It was as though her brain couldn't compute that this was her brother. What? She stammered. A blush of embarrassment crept over her cheeks. I decided to start working out, June said lightly, playing it off as if it were no big deal. Well, what else could he say? He stepped forward, and Sayu instinctively stepped back, bumping into the doorframe, still wide-eyed. Working out? She repeated faintly. Her gaze flicked behind him. You know, exercise. I had some motivation, he said. There was a hint of steel in that last word that made Sayu flinch. She opened her mouth, maybe to apologize or question further, but no sound came. Instead, her eyes lowered. Shame and regret warred on her face. I have to go, she mumbled, unable to meet his eyes. She turned on her heel and practically fled. June exhaled. He didn't feel pleasure at making her uncomfortable, but he also didn't feel inclined to chase after her. Their relationship would need time to rebuild, if it ever did. He remembered some of his older clothes from years back. He pulled them on. Then he grabbed his school bag and headed out. Each step felt new, springy. Approaching the school gates, he felt a thrill of nerves. The courtyard was busy with students milling about before class. June strode in, head high, posture straight. Almost immediately, he sensed eyes turning toward him. First a few, then a growing ripple of murmurs. Who's that? He heard a girl whisper to her friend. Is he new? Another voice muttered. A group of junior girls were outright staring, one even blushing when June inadvertently made eye contact. He turned down the main walkway toward his locker. Two of the basketball team guys were leaning on the lockers, and they actually stepped aside unconsciously as June approached. As he closed his locker, he nearly bumped into someone who had come up behind him. A soft gasp. He turned and found himself face to face with Emily. She looked up at him, confused. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I was looking for, she began, clearly not recognizing him at first. Then her eyes widened. June? She whispered. His heart melted at the way she said his name. Out of everyone, he cared about her reaction the most. He felt suddenly shy, rubbing the back of his neck. Hey, Emily. Emily suddenly stepped forward and hugged him tightly. I was so worried. You missed school and wouldn't answer texts for days, she said. June blinked, then wrapped his arms around her in return. I'm sorry, he murmured. Emily pulled back slightly, blushing furiously now as she realized she was hugging a much leaner, muscular June in the middle of school. Embarrassed. I'm sorry. It's just, you look so… June chuckled gently. I know, it's a lot. I'll explain everything, I promise. Emily nodded. She smiled up at him and he felt that warm glow again. He parted with Emily at her classroom with a promise to meet at lunch. As he walked in, the room fell silent. His teacher, mid-sentence, lost her train of thought. A few students gasped audibly. June? The teacher finally asked, as if seeing a new student on her roster. Yes, Mrs. Pollard. Sorry I'm late. His voice turned a few more heads. My word, you look… she began, then caught herself and cleared her throat. Throughout the morning, June had to endure constant stares and whispers. He answered politely, but didn't encourage them. What did encourage him, however, was noticing at least one person seething at all the attention he received. Amber. He first noticed her in the hallway between classes, standing with her clique by the lockers. Amber's eyes widened as she saw him coming down the corridor. At first, she didn't appear to recognize him. Her gaze was appreciative, like any girl checking out a hot guy. It was only when he gave her a cool, knowing smile that she realized. June? Amber squeaked, causing her friends to look at her in surprise. He paused, tilting his head. Amber's face flushed bright red. Stunned, she struggled to match the boy she'd mocked with this handsome guy. You look, she stammered, then flashed a practiced, flirty smile. You look great. Her cronies exchanged looks. One of them, Marissa, piped up, yeah, like, really great. June felt a flicker of disgust at how transparent they were, but he maintained a polite facade. Thanks, he made to move on, but Amber reached out and lightly touched his arm. Hey, I was just telling the girls about this party at my place Friday night. You should totally come. It'd be fun. Her tone was overly sweet. It took all of June's willpower not to laugh. Here it is, he thought. The popular girl wants me now. He glanced at her hand on his arm until she withdrew it, then looked her square in the eyes. A party on Friday? You know, that sounds not really my scene, he said coolly. Amber blinked, stunned by the rejection. Being the most popular girl, she was used to boys desperately wanting this chance. She let out a small, nervous laugh, as if assuming he was joking. She stepped a bit closer, lowering her voice. I know we didn't hang out much before, but I'd really like to get to know you better, June. A few months ago, this would have been a fantasy. Now it sickened him a little. He spoke softly, so only she and her nearest friend could hear. Get to know me? Amber, we both know you never gave a damn about who I really am. Her smile faltered. That's not true, He didn't let her finish, raising his voice. Truth is, Amber, I have zero interest in hanging out with cruel, shallow people. A hush fell around them as nearby students caught wind of the tension. Amber looked like he'd slapped her. He wasn't done. Weeks of pent-up hurt guided his words. You only care about me now because of how I look. But inside, I'm still June. He stepped back. Your ugly heart disgusts me even more than your fake kindness. Save your invitation. I wouldn't be caught dead near you. An ooh sounded from someone in the gathering crowd. Amber's friends were staring at her, at seeing the queen bee stung. Amber herself looked utterly mortified, mouth opening and closing wordlessly. June turned on his heel and walked away without another glance. Later, as he crossed the courtyard, his eyes caught sight of a familiar bench under the oak tree. Claire was sitting there, alone, fidgeting nervously with her phone. Claire noticed June immediately, as if she'd been waiting for him. She straightened quickly, opening her mouth to speak, but June didn't even glance her way. He kept walking. "Wait, June!" Claire called, her voice urgent. She grabbed at his sleeve, desperately trying to make him stop. June pulled his arm free roughly, turning to face her with an icy glare that made her step back. "Don't touch me. We're not friends. You made it clear you wanted nothing to do with me when I didn't fit your perfect image." Claire's eyes widened, hurt and shock evident on her face. She tried to say something, but June cut her off sharply. "Save it, Claire. Go back to pretending you don't know me. That's what you're best at." Claire's eyes widened, hurt and shock evident on her face. "Please, June," she whispered. "I didn't have a choice. Amber and the others, they pressured me. They said they'd ruin me if I didn't go along with them." June looked back, his tone cold and merciless. "You always had a choice. You choose your popularity over me." Claire shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know it was wrong. I never wanted to hurt you. I was scared. And now you're scared again," June said sharply. "Scared they'll throw you away like you did to me. Well, I'm done being your backup plan when everything else falls apart." He turned away decisively, walking off without another glance. Claire stood there, silent tears streaming. At lunchtime, he met Emily under the oak tree. They sat together on the grass, away from prying ears. He told her a different version of the story. Emily listened, eyes shining with admiration and care. "I'm so proud of you, June," she said sincerely. "But even before all this, you were always worth being proud of. You know that, right?" He gently took her hand. It felt so small and soft in his. "You were there when it mattered. That's everything to me." Emily looked at their entwined fingers, and then back up into his eyes. He realized leaning so close, her lips slightly parted. Before he could overthink, June leaned in and pressed a tender kiss to her forehead, too unsure to aim for lips yet. It was an affectionate gesture, one that made her close her eyes and smile in contentment. By day's end, as he walked out of school with Emily, holding his head high, he thought the chapter of his old life had truly closed. But life had other plans. As he and Emily parted with a warm hug, June felt his phone buzz in his pocket with a familiar, eerie vibration. Pulling it out, he saw the icon glowing on the screen. A new message awaited. Stage 2 adventure mode has been unlocked. The screen pulsed with ominous red light now, not white. A warning flashed. "Do you wish to continue?" At that moment, he reflected on how far he'd come, feeling a growing curiosity to see just how far he could push himself. With a determined breath, June pressed yes. This time, the world didn't fill with light. Before June, a swirling blue portal materialized. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. As his vision adjusted, he realized he was in a torch-lit corridor of what looked like an ancient underground cave. This was nothing like the pristine training grounds. A low growl came from the shadows, and June tensed immediately. A figure emerged, hulking, grotesque. Behind it, other shambling shapes and glinting eyes appeared. Yet June did not back away. Instead, a slow smile spread on his face. "All right," he murmured, clenching his fists, a punch with all his might, enhanced by every ounce of strength he'd earned, connected with the orc's jaw, sending teeth flying. Around him, guttural snarls echoed as more creatures crept out of the dark cells. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit dorm room halfway, a girl stared at her phone. The screen flickered, its pale light reflecting in her hollow eyes as text scrolled, "Stage complete. Choose your skill." A slow, knowing smile curved her lips.